Hey everyone, and welcome to the Rumcast. We're back with another episode where we talk about all things rum related with the people who love and shape it. And never was there a more evident labor of love for rum than what our guest for today's show produced, dedicating over 5 years of his life to working on.
5 years.
Yes, but before we get to talking about that, of course, let's check in with my co-host in good old Rocky Top, Tennessee, the Trinidad to my Tobago, you might say, Mr. Will Hookinga.
Well,
What's up, Will?
You can't put Rocky Top in the intro to Tennessee for me because, I grew up a fan of Alabama, right? And we hate Tennessee football. Tennessee sings the Rocky Top song. I don't know if you're familiar with this tradition or not.
Yeah.
You knew what you were doing.
I hate them both equally, so,
Okay. Well,
for me, it works.
Well, yeah. No, I'm really excited to talk about the interview we have today. Really fascinating. I just got done actually going back and editing that one and re-listening to the whole thing. And it's a kind of interview I feel like I needed to hear twice because there was so much information packed into it. But yeah, we talked to Steffen Mayer, who just finished or just released his magnum opus, we'll call it. It's a book called Caroni 100% Trinidad Rum, and it's all about the story of Caroni, the distillery, the closed distillery in Trinidad. And, the significance of this is basically that this distillery closed in the early 2000s and had about 18,000 something casks of rum left over. Those casks were purchased by a variety of different people, including Luca Gargano of Velier, and those Velier releases are kind of what launched the reputation of Caroni into the stratosphere. It's one of the, I guess, most sought after rums out there now are these Caroni releases because there is no more. It's sort of this lost, closed, mythic distillery. The rum itself has a very distinctive taste. You won't find, I would say, another rum that tastes like a Caroni rum. It's one of those that you can pick it out when you taste it in something. And so, Steffen spent the past 5 years of his life just going back, he interviewed, I think, over 100 people for the book. So getting the full story of how the distillery closed, why it happened, what happened to all the rum in it. There's all these kind of unanswered questions about Caroni rum. Like there's these myths about, is there Jamaican rum in some, Caroni blends? Is Caroni rum in some releases from other distilleries around the world that, may or may not have purchased some rum from Caroni over the years? So Steffen kind of took us through the whole thing, sort of diving into some of the secrets of the story and everything. And it was a joy to talk to. I think anytime you get the chance to talk to someone who just really spent, like you were saying, 5 years, a labor of love doing this full time. And as we say in the interview, like when we say book, the book is like, I don't know, it's like the size of my torso, basically. Like it's full color, amazing photographs and stuff. It's in like this case that it comes in. It's 2 volumes, hardcover. Like
it's like a coffee table book, right? It's huge and nice, and it's not only about what's written in it, although there's tons of information, but just looking at some of the pictures that we've seen and some of the amazing things that he's put together. I mean, every single bottle ever released.
Every single bottle ever released is in there. So on top of like getting the backstory and everything, it's also, if you're the type of person who wants to really know all about every Caroni release and all the details on each bottle and everything, which is actually really helpful. Like if you're seriously interested in hunting down some Caroni bottles, because there are good Caronis out there. Well, I mean, to some people, there might not be any good Caronis. Some people just straight up don't like it. But there's definitely differences in the Caroni bottles available out there in terms of what mark was in it, what still it came from. And so being able to really laser in and make sure you're getting something that you think you'll like if you're, going to spend anywhere from $300 to thousands of dollars on a bottle of rum is nice to be able to do.
Yeah, and there's just something about that mystique you mentioned about Caroni as a distillery. There's just that je ne sais quoi about it that is just makes people kind of goo over it, right? And kind of
and
I don't
gaga
know what,
even.
Yes, exactly. My thoughts exactly. So to see Steffen put so much effort into this, and to see that come to life, because there are plenty of projects I think that people do have passion for, but they don't make it to the finish line. To see him make it to this finish line and see this book produced, not only produced, but many people around the world now have that in their hands, that's a really cool thing. So definitely looking to hear more from him in the future, and what he's doing with this, and seeing that really come to life.
It sounds like this might not be his last rum book. So
spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that in the interview. But anyway, before we get to that, really quickly, in the spirit of diving into a little bit of rum history, I did a little bit myself recently in terms of tasting a rum or two that are a little bit historic. So John, you'll remember that I came into possession of samples of the entire Foursquare ECS range recently, right?
Yeah.
So I talked about this a little bit on the podcast in the past. Each sample contained 1.5 ounces. So I did my little mad scientist experiment of taking 0.5 ounce from each sample and creating the ultimate Foursquare ECS blend containing all of the ones ever released. So I did that, but I hadn't yet gone back and actually started tasting through the ECS releases. And, I'd probably had maybe, 60 to 65% of these releases I'd already tried in the past, but, some of them I hadn't revisited in a long while. And some of them I haven't ever tasted at all. Okay. And so I was trying to kind of figuring out, how am I going to flight this, because I don't really want to just taste through all, I think there's 18 of them. I don't want to just do an 18 rum flight. I'd be, by the end of that, I wouldn't, especially when it's all from one distillery, and people already talk about, how similar some of those releases are. So I really wanted to be able to do cross sections of it and compare the rums that made sense in the release. And so I made this kind of flight schedule, sort of, where I feel like it makes the most sense to compare the vintages together. So, the releases that are year-based. So 2004, 2005, 2007, 2008, etc., because they're all aged the same way. It's all 100% ex-bourbon casks. And then I wanted to do separate flights of the releases that include secondary maturation. So they might involve sherry or port or Madeira casks, etc. Zinfandel, exactly. I think actually port cask was first, but the Zin cask came right after that. So those are going to be in an upcoming flight where I compare those a little bit. But I wanted to start with just the first 3 vintage releases ever done. So the 1998, the 2004, and the 2005.
Oh, wow. You reminded me. I was going to say 2004, 2005, 2007.
Yeah, 98.
But
exactly.
The 98. God, I'm so jealous. Okay, go ahead.
Well, so here's the 98 is the one that I wanted to talk about, because it's fascinating, because I think if you're just coming into rum now and you kind of see what the Foursquare releases are, you might assume that the first release started like all the others. But the first release, the 1998 one, which was released in 2008. So let's see, in 2008, I was 20, so I was a mere 20 years old.
You could not even drink it legally here.
Couldn't even legally consume it yet when that was released, but I found my way to it through the twists and turns of life.
It was bequeathed to you.
Yeah. When it was released, this was not a cask strength release. This was a 40% ABV, 80 proof, all ex-bourbon maturation. So what you would expect there, 10 years old. But so actually what I'm reading now online is according to the label on the back of the bottle, the rum was matured in ex-bourbon casks for about 8 years before being decanted, reduced in strength, and returned to the cask for a secondary maturation. So it sounds like they brought the proof down, then recast it for the remaining 2 years, which is kind of interesting. I didn't know that about that. But anyway, so I was really looking forward to this experience of trying this 80 proof first Foursquare ECS release, because I recalled when one of the times we had Richard on the podcast, he talked about, that first release that they did.
Right.
It was a lot different. Like I don't think there was as much pot still probably as is in some of the current vintages. And that really came through in the release. It was so interesting to taste it because it's so much lighter. And I don't mean that in a bad way necessarily, but it's like a very sort of more delicate, I would say, style of Foursquare. You get like there's like a lot of honey and vanilla, like a little coconut. It's like very soft on the palate. The oak, and like everyone always talks about Foursquare being a rum for bourbon drinkers and like really really oaky and bourbony and that kind of thing. And like
Wood
the oak
notes.
influence in this one is so much dialed back than what we're used to now, I would say. So it was just this really interesting experience of getting to see like what was the opening salvo to the Foursquare theory of rum, their belief system in terms of like what rum should be. And seeing this as what people were ready for at the time back then. So it's kind of like drinking a little rum time capsule, but it was really interesting. And I'm looking forward to kind of, and you could see the progression immediately when you moved on to the 2004, because there was actually 6 years went by in between that release and the 2004 vintage. And the 2004 is much more in the direction of what we see in those vintages now. But I have to say, even that one, the 2004, while being quality, to me, the current releases kind of blow it out of the water.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've had the opportunity to try 2004 a little bit, and I remember being very fond of it, but I remember liking the 2005 that much better.
There was to me a clear, because I did those three back to back to back, and there was like a clear another step with the 2005. Like the 2004, it got a little bit heftier on the palate. It was higher proof. It was like thicker and stuff like that. But the 2005 took it to another level, a lot more oak influence, a lot more kind of like interesting spices and stuff like that. So it's a good start to the journey, but I thought that would be a fun little historical footnote to begin the podcast on.
Well, I can't follow that up, obviously, because I don't have the releases that you were so nicely given. But interestingly, and we didn't plan this at all before this, but the one thing I was going to quickly talk about that I had been sipping on is actually the Zin cask.
Oh, so, okay. Wow. Yeah. So Foursquare time capsule time.
Yeah. The reason I did that actually is because I was able to source Indelible recently. Finally found it in my area.
Wow. It had been hard to get down there?
Yeah. Hadn't seen it. Wow. Hadn't seen it at all in a lot of places.
Distribution can be funny. Like sometimes here in Nashville, the people that get it here will just like let it sit in the warehouse for like 3 months before they'll put it in stores. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously with the Indelible being Zin cask as well, I wanted to go back and A/B that a little bit. I haven't sat with it for too long, but the initial impression, I can immediately tell exactly kind of what you're saying, which is that it's lighter and thinner in the original Zin cask. And even though there is a proof difference, this one was, I believe it was 43% versus Indelible being 48. So there's a step up in proof, which is going to make things a little bit more robust as well. But there's almost a lighter, softer minerality to the original Zin cask, and the Indelible release I think recreates it very faithfully. It's very close, but I do think it steps it up a little bit.
I wonder if there was just more column still distillate in those earlier releases.
That might be it.
There may just not have been as much of an anticipation for pot still being so in demand. But yeah, fascinating stuff. I'll definitely flight Zin cask and Indelible together, so I can do that comparison as well, because that'll be fun. Yeah. But with all that said, let's go ahead and send things over to the interview, and we'll put some links in the show notes to where you can purchase the book, like what we cover in the interview. But there were only 2,000 copies printed, so it's kind of like a bottle of Caroni rum in and of itself.
It's rare itself.
It's pretty limited, but there are like a number of retailers. I think many of them are in the EU that are carrying the book, so you have some options there if you want to order it. And we'll put links up so you can check out what it looks like and see all the beautiful photos and things like that. But let's go ahead and kick it over to the interview with Steffen. right, we are here with Steffen Mayer, the man behind the new book that you've probably... Steffen, I feel almost disrespectful calling it a book, because when people hear book, they just think of, like a little paperback book or something like that. It's somewhere between a book and a work of art. But the book is Caroni 100% Trinidad Rum. And actually... literally just, it's morning over here. I know it's afternoon where you are, but I woke up to a message from one of our listeners, one of our patrons, who said, I've been tasting some Caroni I haven't sampled in a long time as I work my way through Steffen's recently arrived magnum opus. Looking it over makes me think I'm not obsessing enough about the things I'm obsessed about. So I feel like first of all, magnum opus is a good way to describe what you've done and the sort of obsessive amount of work that went into it. But you just mentioned to us before we hopped on, you're 4 weeks out from release now. So I just wanted to kind of take the temperature on how are you feeling after working on this for so long and now about a month in being able to see people's reactions to it. What has that been like for you?
Yeah, at the moment I realize what I have done, because after I finished the project, I was really tired because the last months, the people can't imagine how much work it was because I had a deadline, I had to finish the book for printing. And on this project, not only work me, it was much more people involved because it's translated in 4 languages.
Yeah.
So there was a layout, the translators, and all was sitting in my bag and asking, Steffen, I need. So it was a lot of work at the end. And then when the book was finished, I first feel tired,
Yeah.
And all the books had to be shipped and everything, and I'm a one-man show,
Yeah. You're like Frodo on Mount Doom. It's done, finally.
Yeah. Now it's funny. Many people writing me, and today also a famous blogger, Belgian blogger, writes me, "Hey, Steffen, I think the same you have written about this and this, and it's the truth."
That's
because
cool.
Sometimes you make a lot of research, and to put a puzzle together, sometimes you also have to speculate, and then when you have so many informations and bring them together, and at the end everything fits, and then you get a feedback also from other people. Hey, Steffen, you were right. It makes me happy,
Yeah.
But the most thing I have done, I have done a lot of interviews, and because I don't like the speculation thing to say maybe, I prefer to talk with people and find really the right answers from the important persons who work there, from the employees, from all the people they were involved in Caroni, in the closure, they are working there and things like that.
Well, and there's a lot of stuff we want to dig into there that you were talking about, but I figure maybe it helps to kind of set the stage a little bit. So you're over there in Germany now. How does a guy from Germany become so passionate about Trinidadian Caroni rum and then decide to devote a significant portion of his life to producing this huge project? It took you 5 years, right?
Yes, 5 years, full-time research. So the only thing I can say, it happens, I never had planned this.
That's a great answer.
In the past, I worked a lot. I had my own company. I become ill because working. And then I closed my company. I get immediately a job, and I said, hey, people, I have to slow down. It was a friend who offered me a job, and then I said, for me, it's normal to work 12 hours a day. It's nothing special. So I only want to work half. So 2.5 days, 30 hours. And my friend told me, yes, I employ you. It's fine. And then it starts again. He asked me, can you work 1 day more? And I said, okay, 1 day more. Maybe it's
slowly getting sucked back in, right?
Creeps in, yeah.
And after 1 year, I worked the same like before. And then I quit my job and had no idea what I will do next. This was in end of 2016.
Okay.
And in 2015, I ordered a bottle of Caroni because, at this time, Caroni was still payable. It was not so expensive. And I bought other rum, and I don't like to pay shipping. So I go through the shop and read something about other rums. And I thought, okay, this Caroni story is interesting. I buy a bottle.
I'm the exact same way. Hate paying for shipping.
Yeah. So there you have it.
Do
That's the real
anything to
reason.
avoid shipping costs.
It was other time, And then I bought this bottle, but I don't open it. And then when I quit my job, my brother-in-law visited me. He's a whiskey collector and he loves whiskey. And I only drink normally rum, so like whiskey, but at home I drink rum. And then he told me, Steffen, now you have to open a good bottle of rum.
Time to celebrate.
When the bottle was closed, it was a Caroni. So I said, okay, maybe drink this one. And he said, yeah, open it. I opened the bottle, and then my brother-in-law, he becomes crazy. He said, unbelievable rum. It's like a whiskey. It's unbelievable. Very good. I also liked it, but he becomes totally crazy. And then he asked me, how much is a rum like this? And I said, nothing. I bought to pay no shipment. And then I said, okay, wait, I Google it. And the price was crazy. It was more than 3 times so much. And I thought, hey, what's happened? Why is a rum I bought 1 year ago now so expensive?
Caroni mania had begun.
Yeah. I had time because I quit my job, and then I start a research only because I was interested in why it's so expensive. And then I read everywhere, on every shop, on everywhere you can find something, a different story. Some write 2000 was closed, some 2005.
Yeah.
And everywhere was something different. But I was interested in drink more Caroni and find out more. And so I bought some more bottles, and I go in a bottle shop and was talking to the guy from this shop. And I said, may I write a book about it? Because there is so many different things. And then this guy, it was Jens Gehlert from Limited Whiskey in Germany, he told me, you have to do this. Steffen, you really have to do this. And what I don't know, what I haven't known at this time, he was in the past a publisher. So, and then he also told me, hey, Steffen, you have to do it. And then I found friends in the internet. We started to create lists, what rums exist. And then I dropped in this, in this book project, and I had fun with it. And at one point, I found the responsible people. I can ask the correct questions, and then it starts, And then I was so impressed in this, and because before I had the same knowledge than everybody else about rum, and then I read old literature, things like that, and go deeper and deeper in this project. And I thought, when you read an old book and you think, hey, this guy died 100 years before, now I have his book, is something special.
Kind of cool, right? Yeah.
That's cool. And then I thought, I have to do something like this as well. And because of that, when you look at the book, you described it at the beginning, something special. I never really thought about earning money with this project. For me, it was really a passionate project. For me, I decided I like to write a perfect rum book, not only Caroni, because when you like to understand all the difference from Caroni to other rums, you have to understand Caroni in general.
Yeah.
Entschuldigung, rum in general.
Right.
And all the books I found, mostly it was too technical, the books, Sometimes I always thought the people writing books for the industries, not for customers, When you start reading, and it's almost English, so I became tired because it was so hard to read this text.
It's like almost academic, sort of, yeah.
Right.
And also, when you read it in English, you miss maybe 10% of the things you read. And
Sure.
mostly this was the most important things I don't understand. That's also why I made a book in 4 languages, because I think if you like to understand the production of rum and everything, the whole history of Caroni, you have to read it in your native language. So I done it in 4 languages, the book, and I write it, I think, different than other writers, because I think everybody should understand everything. So you
trying to
also
make it more accessible.
Yes, the people understand, the normal people, they drink rum, what I'm talking about, not an engineer who is producing rum. The normal people have to understand, and that was important to me, to make everything with easy words, with pictures that the people understand. And I think it's become good. So it looks good, everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's really stunning to kind of look through. And I haven't seen a copy in person yet, but just in seeing you created a Facebook group to kind of document your progress and stuff. And I was going back and scrolling and just you posted so many videos from like the printer where it was being like put together by hand and all this stuff, and like the gold, I forget what it's called, but the kind of gold press that's put on the slipcase that you put together, and it's really quite amazing. So I'd encourage anyone listening, we'll post some links and stuff to where you can see the book online. But yeah, I think what you were talking about just then of trying to balance, like making hard to understand concepts easy to understand and accessible for the average consumer. I think John and I talk about that a lot because you know, we've interviewed people on the podcast before who are, you know, very technical, either head distillers or things like that, and you can find really fascinating information about how rum is made, but trying to present it in a way where it's still understandable is always like there's a balance that I think you have to achieve, and it's always sort of hard to figure out where that is. So that's cool that you spend a lot of time thinking about that. I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about Caroni and sort of like what it sounds like. It started a little bit with just trying to figure out how did this rum become so expensive, which I think is a really interesting kind of start to the Caroni story. But one thing over the years that I've noticed with Caroni is I don't think I've ever seen another rum distillery have so many sort of mysteries and legends swirling around it. You know, we hear whispers of things like Jamaican rum being in some of the distilleries' casks. We hear people saying Caroni rum being used in blends by other distilleries, and some people say no, they never used Caroni rum. Just what do you think there is about Caroni rum that created so much mythology and speculation, to borrow a word you used, about the distillery? Like, what is the reason for all of that?
I think the reason is during Caroni was still producing rum, the rum was so special that they hadn't so much success because they always sold the rum in bulk. So for blending to other companies' rum, but the kind of rum, Caroni, was so special when you put it in a blend, you always taste immediately Caroni, and that was hard for them to sell. And they never sold as a single cask or something like this, because at Caroni, always when they sold the rum to other companies, they first blended it with neutral alcohols. So when you, for example, the Moon Import 1967, that's a real Caroni, you know, and this rum doesn't taste good because there's only a small part of Caroni and the rest is neutral alcohol. So in all the rum they sold for single cask bottlings or things like that, they first blended always with neutral alcohol before they sold.
Wow. So almost like how rum Verschnitt was made in Germany, sort of like that?
Yes, something like this. Yes.
Wow.
But the amount was bigger there. Rum Verschnitt, it was much less.
Right.
Because they took very flavorful Jamaican rum.
Very high ester, yeah.
But that's the way they worked. And so before Luca Gargano found the cask nobody knows Caroni because not so much rum was sold. The most rum was sold, the light rums was sold to other distilleries. A lot of rum was, I called these island blends. They did make their own rum for the island to sell. But the most rum bought the employees. So not the employees from the distillery, the employees from Caroni 1975, the whole sugarcane company. The employees could buy from their salary in the front, and they took it up from their salary, the bottles they bought. So a lot of rum was also sold on the island with their blends they made. Yes. And so the rum was not famous at all. And then happened something. Luca found the cask after closure. And Luca done something very special. He done more special things. He took the black bottles. He bottled the bottles in full proof, the bottlings. And then he used the pictures from his trip. Was very special bottlings because that I think he was years in the front in
ahead
the
of his time.
Yeah, and so I think now all people are searching for these bottles because they're very special. Caroni rum is very, very special from the taste. It's unique. That makes him famous now. But they never before, during Caroni exist. They never make single cask like this. So the rum was produced for the local market and for bulk sales. And also I talked with Carsten from EH Share. He was only laughing. He told me, I always bought Trinidad rum. So when I buy from Angasturas, I bought shipwise, full ships. And from Caroni, he bought about 100,000 liters per year, what is nothing for him,
Right.
Of course, this rum was so special. When you put it in a blend, you always can taste Caroni, so it's hard to use it,
That would make sense why he always bought smaller quantities then.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It is definitely distinct. The few Caronis I've had I agree, 100%. They're very distinct in what they bring. Yeah. Steffen, so I'm interested in something. As a lover of printed materials myself, I don't even know if Will knows this, but
in addition, of printed materials. That's a good description.
It is true, actually. So in addition to my rum collection, I also have an old book collection.
Okay.
So I love the old books. As you were kind of mentioning, there's some sort of mystique that comes with them. And yet also there's this other side of the equation now in modern times where a book almost feels like old technology in a weird way to some people. And I resist that very much. But what I thought was very smart that what you did was, Will mentioned already the Facebook group, that you kept people engaged through Facebook as you were making this book. It's a beautiful work of art in it of itself. And then also something else, that you partnered with the makers of the RumX app to make this book into an interactive experience as well, which I think is a really nice blend and a smart idea in the 21st century to do. So I wanted to ask you, how did this partnership come about, and was this recognized as something you had wanted to do from early on in the project, or did that come about later?
It's easy to explain. I don't want to write in my book about taste, because taste is something very personally. I like also the dirty Caronis. For example, I like the no smoking. Some people told me you can't write in your book that you like the no smoking. It's not so good Caroni.
You can't write that it tastes like a tire fire to you. Yeah.
And that's it, Taste is something totally personally.
Right.
So I looked for a solution to get the taste out of the book, but that it's also in the book for the people that are interested in. Because you write me a letter before the interview and you ask me, hey, Steffen, what rum you like to recommend to people they start with Caroni and things like that? With this feature, with RumX, they have the possibility to look for every bottle for the quality as well. Right. When a rum is good rated, you can trust these people and can buy this bottle. There are also a lot of Caronis that are not good. I think we talk later about all the Caroni marks, the secrets behind what the meaning is. And so there are different marks. Some marks are very good, the heavy ones. Then there are light ones, or also the LWR. It's a special mark. It's not so flavorful, you know. And to buy a rum like this for drinking, for pure drinking, is not so good, you know. And all this information you find in the book, and with the app, you can scan every bottle and you can see, okay, this bottle is rated like this, and it makes sense to buy this bottle also for drinking, because for me, the most important thing is the Caroni also become drunken, you know?
Yeah.
And with this feature, you find all informations about the taste, and it's from international community. It's from many different people. So in the middle, it's always perfect. Yes.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense in that way. So it's essentially a companion to the book.
Well, and it sounds like it gives you a way to get a lot of people's opinions about what a particular bottle tastes like, as opposed to just, one definitive statement about it.
Yeah. You mentioned, Steffen, about dirty. It's something that has a dirty flavor to you, which I was interested because I saw another interview where you had said that as well. Is there another word or something? I'm trying to translate that in a different way to what we mean when we experience that flavor of, like you're saying, a dirty Caroni. Does that mean that kind of, I call it sometimes a rubbery type of flavor?
I've heard some people say garage notes.
I don't find other word than dirty, because you can. I found out as well from where the dirty flavors they come from. And the funny thing is that the dirty flavors they come because at the end of Caroni, they get new managers, and these managers were from the sugar industry, and that were managers. Their focus was to sell. They had no idea about production, Right. And these people, one of these managers said, we can't stop the distillation process during we clean the still. The machine has to go on the still. And so they produced Caroni rum during cleaning the still, know? And
all about efficiency.
And then the still took dirty flavor Swiss, from things they had to be cleaned, that it got in the rum, and that makes the flavor of the dirty taste is something so crazy. Because that, I can't say, for me, it's a dirty taste, because the story behind is there's something in that normally shouldn't be in. And that's also, there are so many stories from the production, what they have done. We will talk about it.
Speaking of those stories, I did want to ask, I know you interviewed a ton of people for this project. You mentioned already you spoke with Karsten from EA Shear and Luca, and I know there's a lot of high-profile names. I wanted to ask which one or two interviews that are included are maybe with people who might not be as recognizable names to rum geeks like us or others, but who you think were really just to stand out in terms of great sources of knowledge, and you can't wait for people to discover.
For example, one important person was Vijay Ramnarayan. You know him from the Employee series on the bottles.
He's on one of the bottles.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
He was a distillation supervisor. Then there was Marilyn Persal. She was the manager of the lab. So there I get also a lot of important informations. And also Dr. Biran. He was the distillery manager between 1980 and 1989. So there were a lot of important person, also from Caroni itself.
Right, inside the distillery,
to get all the information from inside and outside. And in my book, I also don't point, because when you ask me later maybe why Caroni was closed, in my book, I tell the stories from different views, from people they worked there, from the politics, from people like Carsten, who makes the inventory of the cast. So the people, they read the book, they have the view from different positions and can do their own decision what happened. I don't point on the finger on something. So everybody can make his own decisions,
Yeah.
because it isn't so easy to say why Caroni is closed. For the distillery, it's easy to say because there's no more molasses on the island, and so there is no possibility to distill rum. So, of course, that is easy. But the question why the whole sugar industry get closed in Trinidad is not easy.
Not an easy.
Right.
Many reasons are this.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to that, because I think that is one of the difficult things to understand. I've researched a little bit over the years about Caroni just out of curiosity and trying to understand, okay, why did the distillery close? What was the process like? And there's even all sorts of speculation and like differing accounts of the estimated value of the inventory of casks that they had when it was closed and how those were divvied up and everything. And I know you just mentioned there are lots of different perspectives, and I'm sure people have different accounts of what happened, but just for you at a high level, I guess, for someone who is a rum fan and is aware of Caroni but doesn't know the story of why it shut down, what's your high level view of what happened essentially?
So there are more reasons than only one. So when we jump back to 1975, there was the owner of Caroni was at this time Tate and Lyle. It's a multinational sugar company from UK. Mm-hmm. They owned the complete Caroni company. And in 1975, they sold it to the government because, many people don't like, it's part of colonism, the big UK company owns the sugar. Why not? They should own it by their own. And so the government decided to buy Caroni. And then the name changed from Caroni Ltd to Caroni 1975 Ltd. It was the state-owned company. And in this point, Tate and Lyle in the front makes already pressure of the UK government that they make a law. It was called the Loam Sugar Protocols, that Trinidad only can sell raw sugar to UK.
Okay, so just to the UK.
And so in this time, Tate and Lyle bought all refineries in UK. So they had a monopoly of referending to make sugar, white sugar. Mm-hmm. And so for the government, they bought Caroni, but in the first step, they had immediately a problem because they only can sell to Tate and Lyle, the owner before, and Tate and Lyle can tell them the price.
Right.
That was the first problem. The second problem was that the worker unions, they always said, okay, we have the sugarcane industry, the sugar fields, the people have to work by hand because the people, they earn not so much. They need a job. Mm-hmm. And so we don't need harvesters to make the fields. We can do everything by hand. And the worker unions make a lot of pressure to the government that everything will be like this until the end, But with this, it was also a problem because it was not possible to make with this kind of work a good price for the world market. So the production of sugar costs more than they can earn with sugar,
Right.
And then there was the situation with the monopoly of Tate and Lyle in UK. So Caroni never earned money with sugar from the point the government bought Caroni. And so they had always a problem. Many people were employed there. Yes, like the car industry in Germany, and they had to do a decision, and then also the politics, the parties fight to each other. So in one party there was the sugar workers, so the other party tried to close the whole sugar company to destroy the other party. So it was also very political at this time, where it should be closed. And the next problem was for Caroni Distillery. There was also a solution for Caroni to have a joint venture with Brown-Forman in the US with Jack
really?
Daniels.
Oh, okay.
And there was nearly a contract finished for joint venture that Jack Daniels would sell Caroni all over the world,
Wow.
The government makes a decision. No, we like to keep everything in Trinidad. We like to sell to Angostura, but Angostura had not the network like Jack Daniels to sell worldwide. So it was also a wrong thinking. And at the end, everything gets closed, and there are much more reasons. You can't, it's a big book.
It's hard to just sum it up.
Yeah.
But there are some reason what went wrong that at the end the whole sugar industry get closed in Trinidad, and it's crazy because so many people and family members lived from the sugar cane.
Yeah, it's a way of life.
Was really, really, really crazy.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget sometimes as just rum consumers, especially historically, how tied distilleries were to the sugar industry, and then also how volatile the sugar industry is. I was just at a conference recently, and someone was showing a chart of the price of sugar, over the past 50 or 60 years, and it's just it looks like a Bitcoin chart or something. It's just like all over the place. And you saw Puerto Rico used to be a huge sugar producer, and if you go there now, there's not a single sugar mill. It's all gone.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, Will, but I also wanted to kind of point out it's kind of interesting to hear that there's like perhaps this alternate universe out there where Caroni rum is as ubiquitous as Jack Daniels might be if it were to have been distributed in that way and a different decision was made. So that is crazy to think about. Yeah.
When we think more about this, also with this possibility, the problem is that sugar industry is always thinking only about producing sugar
more efficiently.
For them, is molasses waste.
Who cares? Yeah,
and that makes the molasses worse. Right.
And so they sell it like waste for price, like waste. When they would think about it and say, okay, without molasses, you can't produce rum. So we ask other price, because without our waste, they can't produce price. So when you think more about this, I think the option with Brown-Forman would be also be a solution that the whole sugar industry in Trinidad still be alive, because when they took more money with for the molasses, so they can earn money with molasses, and when you put all things together, maybe you can earn also money with the sugar, because they get one for the molasses. And at the end of the distillery, you can say maybe the Caroni Distillery could save the whole sugar industry,
Wow. Yeah.
So everything is possible when you think about it, but it's always the same. I talk to many people. Always for the sugar industry, molasses is waste, and they sell it like this. They could ask much more money, I think, because without this, you can't produce rum.
Yeah, we should do a whole episode sometime on just the state of molasses and everything
and sugar.
In rum. But one of the other sort of hard to parse stories that comes out of the closure of Caroni. I've read several articles about this over the years, some of which were, written in Trinidad around the time. But like after the distillery closed, they still had all this aged rum. You know, that's why Caroni bottles still keep getting released today, because there was all this leftover aged rum that was bought by various people, and people like Luca now are still releasing, you know, some Caroni releases. But there was a big disagreement on how the aged rum stock should be valued. They had multiple people kind of, as I understand it, give an evaluation of the casks. And I think they had one estimation come in around like under $100 million. And there was another one that was saying like, no, these casks could be worth up to $1 billion or something like that. And there was a big controversy about that. Did you dig into that in any of your conversations? And what did you learn about that?
That's easy to explain. The person who went there to make the inventory was Carsten from EAShare, yeah?
Okay,
Carsten
wow.
He fly there. We span from the main rum company to make the valuation. And I asked Carsten, how you make the valuation? How you make the pricing? And he said, it was very easy to do this. I was customer over years. So I know what I paid for the rum. And so it's very easy. I took the price I paid over years, you know, and then I make a valuation. That was one view of a valuation. Valuation, the newspaper you can find, it's with the 18,533 cars, is the valuation from Carsten. And I think this valuation is correct. The other valuation you talk about with 1 billion, it's also easy to explain, because in Trinidad, the people, when there is something like this, there's a lot of passion, you know. They close the sugar industry. They like to sell something the people worked for many years because the stock was very old stock. So there is a lot of passion, you know. And then again, the worker unions, they start to think, you know, they start to think, how much is a bottle of rum in a supermarket? If, for example, we take a price, 10 euros, okay. So we take, for a bottle of rum, we need 20% aged rum. The rest we take neutral spirits. How many bottles we can make out of one cask? It's so many casks. And how many casks? So many casks. And when we take this sales price, what for a price we have at the end? 1 billion. So perfect. It's 1 billion is the stock. It's worth 1 billion, you know. It's also, and then they go to the press and said, yeah, we calculated 1 billion. We have found a person who make a valuation. I think this person never ever exists. It was also a political thing to make pressure, because also the worker unions like to buy this cask. And so everything, you know, it start cooking in the press. And it's a very political thing in Trinidad. And I think the valuation with the 20 millions from Carsten was the correct one, you know. Now, of course, when you take the prices from now, maybe the other
closer to the billion
would be correct. But to be honest, there was 18,533 casks. And Rudy Moore was the guy who tried to sell Caroni Distillery in total. And he was also the guy who tried to sell the cask. At the beginning, he tried to sell the complete Caroni Distillery. But for us, we also will talk later about the stills, I think. Everything was very old, you know?
Yeah.
So when you read, there was a new still at Caroni, they become a new still. It never was a new still. Every time done the same.
Refurbished or something like that.
There comes a new estate to Caroni, you know, they bought a new estate. Then they took the still from the estate, and they looked at the still. What can we use for our still? Maybe this part, and then they make took a hammer and put me together,
It's like a
So,
Frankenstein still.
Yeah.
yes, like this, yes. And so from the Gebrüder Hermann, the last 4 columns still at Caroni, parts were 80 years old,
Oh, wow.
At one point in about 2005, Rudy Moore tried to start the still again, and then everything was broken.
Oh, wow.
Nothing worked anymore. So it wasn't possible to sell Caroni as a distillery because it's all was scrap, it's all was old because every money Caroni earned, they had to give to the sugar company, So
Right.
they had never money to make something really new. So they tried to make every time from old things, new things. And that was a problem. So he couldn't sell the Caroni as complete still. So he decided, okay, what we are doing, okay, we sell Caroni, the cask on the local market. We make our island blends, and sell them to the local market. There's also a reason because when you look in the inventory, you find a stock from about 3,800 something Jamaican rum cask.
Right.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So these casks, they were never Jamaican rum. It was a blend of Jamaican rum and Caroni, because Caroni had the problem that to sell, to compare to Angostura on the local market. So they thought about it. How can we make our rum more flavorful? So they bought a high ester rum at National Rums of Jamaica. Normally, when you talk from high ester rum, it's Long Pond, but I think 100% it was Money Mask, the rum they bought.
Oh, so maybe from Clarendon?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, well, yeah, when you said high ester National Rums of Jamaica, I was like, oh, it must have been Long Pond.
Right.
So
yes, but it was Money Mask, and and they made a blend of this rum, this Caroni, and aged it for 3 years to use this blend for their rums for the local market,
okay.
make them more flavorful.
And so this would have been like the lighter Caroni rums that were being blended with Jamaican rum, not the kind that are being released now, right?
It was also heavy rum with Jamaican rum. You can still, at one point, they told me in Germany they make a joke on Facebook because I drank a TDL rum from 2001, Rum Artisanal, released this rum, and I tasted, I smell, and I said, oh, it's Caroni rum. And I tasted it, and I said, there must be Caroni rum inside. And then, the story began. I sent this bottle because then some other people taste this. Never ever is this Caroni rum. And then I sent this bottle to Luca. And Luca sent this bottle to the laboratory to make analysis. And then I sit with Luca and we taste it. And Luca always said, that's Money Mask. I think it's Money Mask. And then we tried with other people. And at one point we imagined that has to be a blend from Caroni, from
one
this
of those
stock.
casks. Yeah.
And also Rudy Moore told me, Rudy Moore, it was everything when he said something very careful. He always said, okay, Steffen, I tell you this from my mind. And my mind tells me that all this stock bought Angostura. I'm sure, but it's from my mind, so I can't be sure. So always like this, he talked. But all this stock went to Angostura, and we have to ask what happened with this rum. And I'm sure there are a lot of TDL's rums you can buy at a moment, very powerful rum with some menthol notes or mint notes. And I think for 100% sure, when you also when he looked at the analysis, he said, such rum with so many containers he nearly never had. So his Caroni stock from Guyana has so many containers, But for normal rum, unbelievable. And I'm 100% sure that is some TDLs you can buy at the moment between 2000 and 2005 vintage are Caroni stock. So it's blend of Jamaican Caroni rum.
And so you think it's specifically those Jamaican Caroni blends, not necessarily like 100% Caroni that would come from TDL.
No. It's a blend. They made these for the local market, and that was a plan to sell all the stock of Caroni. But then happened the closure of Caroni 1975, and what Rudy Moore never expected was that all the employees, they bought Caroni because they can buy it on their salary, So they took a bottle and say, put it on my pay bill, or how it's called.
I wish I could do that in my job sometimes.
And then Caroni was closed, and at this point, the employees had no more reason to buy Caroni, so they bought Angostura. And so all the thinking that they planned to make these blends with Jamaican rum, to sell all the rum on the local market failed. So they need another solution to sell the cask. And then Luca Gargano found the stock. And then he, at the beginning, Rudy Moore sold him so much because he was dreaming that he still can sell the whole distillery. And then Luca can every year comes back and bought more and more and more. And so it happens. And with Luca, Caroni start to become famous.
Right.
Because when people say now, yes, you see now the value was much more of the stock. Without Luca, I think something like this would never have happened.
It's interesting, because going back to the different valuations, like you were saying, the valuation that came from Karsten at the time was probably accurate for what the rum was worth at the time.
At that time, yeah.
But then you fast forward 20 years in the future and you have the distillery closed, you have the rum being released in highly limited fashion,
scarcity,
and being marketed in a certain way, and the price becomes much more. So it's an interesting.
But you can give on this a very easy answer. Karsten with EA Share. EA Share is the biggest rum company in Europe.
Right.
Yeah. So he made a valuation. So he had access to one of the famous rum stock you can buy now bottled, He had the access. He was the first. He was standing there. He had all 18,500 casks in his front. And you know how many casks he bought? 0.
Yeah.
He bought not one cask because he don't believe in this rum, At this time, the time changed with Luca.
Right.
Before. So even Karsten doesn't believe in the quality of Caroni, because it was so unique, so special, he can't use for a blend. And the stock was too big. And so he doesn't bought.
Right.
So
I imagine it's also, a business decision in a way as well for him, and thinking about what the evaluation is versus what the sell. I don't want to get too much into his head, but, I would think there's a lot of angles there, that it's not just about the rum itself and the quality, but also there's other factors. But before we get too far away from this, Steffen, I did want to ask you mentioned the stills and the Frankenstein still and others. What happened to the stills from Caroni? Where did they end up, and how does that story finish?
At the end, there was only one still, It was Guido Hermann, and they sold it for the metal price to get it in a brass. The still is destroyed, yes.
Oh, I was hoping for a better ending than that.
So, for understanding, all Caroni you can buy, nearly all, is column still, There are no other stills. There is also pot still Caroni exists still now. It's called Providence Rum, Providence Estate, Providence Caroni, whatever. That is all the rum from the pot still. It's called Providence because the still was from the Providence Estate, the pot still. And the name was written on the pot still. There was written Providence. And in 1980, Gebrüder Hermann, the 4-column still, it's from German companies, German engineers made this still with parts of existing stills. Yeah. So in 1979, all the employees know that Caroni, 1980, there will be a new still, the Gebrüder Hermann, and they need the instruments of the pot still to make this still. So they produced like crazy pot still, and they put all this pot still in a big steel tank, put toasted wood chips inside the steel tank, and then it was a pot still. And so every time when they took something out of the steel tank, they don't use the distillation time, 1979 or 1980. They used the time they took the rum out of the steel tank.
Okay, so it wasn't being distilled, it was just being stored there.
Right.
It's stored there. And so all the 1990, 1991, 1992 Providence rum was from the pot still and was distilled in 79 and 80. Yeah. But they always used the time to took the rum out of the steel tank for the distillation date. So the most Providence is from 1991. So because that, I always say when the people say, yeah, we have pot still from Caroni, I say, stop. Before they sold it, they blended with neutral alcohol. So it's again the same story than everything else.
Yeah.
When they sold rum at the regular time, the distillery was still open. It always was blended with neutral alcohol. So the pot still is no pot still. It's only a part of pot still. But the main rum is neutral alcohol. So when you try a Providence rum, you can't drink it. It's not a good rum, you know.
Right.
So the only remaining pot still is no pot still, and it's not really good rum. So
it was in that steel tank with the wood chips for up to 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they took it out and
blend it with neutral
alcohol.
spirit. Yeah.
And so the most rum you can buy from 1991 is Providence from this vintage, and
so maybe skip that one.
There are some rums. For example, the blended one from Velier is no Providence, but the most rums you can buy is Providence, the vintage, and it's not the good rum from 1991. Yes.
On that note of the good Caroni rums, the bad Caroni rums. It is pretty difficult, and we talked about this earlier. It's difficult to kind of get into Caroni as a rum enthusiast, because it's scarce and there just aren't that many bottles available. And then, obviously the prices have skyrocketed over the years. But then, there's different independent bottlers, different stills, different marks, and it's all subjective of which ones are the best and where to start. But if someone is listening who's never had Caroni and is interested in, I want to try something, what do you think is kind of the best? What maybe years or stills or what should they look for?
When the people ask me for one rum they should buy, at the moment, for me, the most underrated Caroni is the replica from Velier, from the 100th anniversary, the yellow big bottle.
Okay.
You can still buy for, I think, 270 euros.
Okay. So not bad for Caroni.
It's a full tropical aged rum, and it's very, very good, because from some when you buy a bottle from an independent bottler, you always have to make a little bit research before you buy a bottle to know it's a good one or not so good one. Because at the moment, I think in the last 2 weeks they released 15 new Caronis, and the bottle price is between 500 and 850 euro from a continental aged Caroni, and you never know what's the quality of this rum.
Right.
On all the Velier bottlings, you can read the mark. You know it's a heavy, it's a light, it's a blended. And the independent bottlers, the most rum, bought Bristol Spirits. after Velier, and they bought everything. So also a lot of LTR, LWR. For understanding what is LWR, it's also light rum, and I don't understand why they have done this. So for me, it's crazy to do something like this. I asked, what is LWR? And they told me it's local white rum. It's a name. And what they have done, they took out the toasting of the cask.
Really? So they filtered it
out the total toasting of the cask and put inside the light rum. So I don't understand why you should do something, because the aging is not working well, So they told me they don't like so much tannins and things like that, but the rum is not really good. So when you have, for example, the 25 years old Company Descent from the last year, it's 100% LWR light white rum. The rum has really no flavor because it was the
almost
whole time this kind
cask.
of cask.
Yeah.
They never changed the cask. So,
got it.
So a lot of rum come to Europe in IBC tanks. So they changed the cask. So you can say from beginning 2009 was a normal cask. So the rum started to get flavor. But when you have a real LWR after 25 years, it's not really a good quality, because they removed the toasting out of the...
So there's not, I had imagined then, at first I had confused it saying it was filtered, but you're not saying it's filtered. You're saying they put it in an almost inert cask because it didn't have any toasting, so there wasn't a lot of interaction with the wood over that time period. And those are still available?
Yeah, as I told you, the CD I can show you.
We may have to put this on video, Will.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
No, you're fine.
It's this one.
Okay.
Got it.
That's the real LWR. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So also for me, always to spend, this bottle costs 500 euros to spend so much money for a quality like this. It's crazy. Right. But I bought a few bottles when I do a masterclass so that people understand, but also the different marks. Yeah, right. I think it's interesting what it's possible, this LWR, LTR, with Providence and HDR, and
Yeah, it just further highlights the point we've talked about, about people look at aging years and automatically assume that, it's more aged, it's got to be better or something like that. But the cask type, the what's done in the cask, all of that just matters so much to producing what the rum ends up being. So it's just another reminder of that. Yeah.
Yes. I always say age is only a number.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean quality at all.
It's true for people too.
We hope. Yeah.
So real quick, something that occurred to me, as I was going through the Facebook group, there were so many times where you posted like, today I'm in Italy or somewhere, tasting rums with this person, we're looking at these Caroni rums. And it sounds like, in order, you kind of listed every bottle that's ever been released in the book. And so I'm assuming you wanted to experience as many of them as possible. But what was kind of your most memorable Caroni tasting session as you were traveling around, hunting down different bottles and stuff? Is there a particular time that really stands out to you?
In the whole book, I don't write about taste.
Yeah.
In one chapter, I write also about taste, because for normal people, it's not possible to try this kind of rum.
Yeah.
I made in the historical part of Caroni, where all the old bottles are, the original bottlings from Caroni. I had them all with me in Berlin at the last rum festival, and to try these rums with, I think we were 12 or 14 rum geeks to try together and talk about these rums, because Caroni is something different to whiskey, you know. When you see what people pay for all bottlings, sometimes it's crazy because in whiskey, the old bottlings, you know, the master blenders had a possibility to go on the stock and say, okay, for my blend, I take these cards, only the best for my blend, you know. So these whiskeys from the 70s, 60s are the best whiskeys you can buy. In rum, it's different, you know.
Yeah.
The rum they produce, for example, for the local market, it was rum for the cocktails or things like that. They are not really drinkable. So, and they always blended it with neutral alcohol.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So we tasted all the old Caronis to write what we think about the taste and what are the good ones you can spend money. So I think for the good ones, the old ones, Caroni, the Navy rums you can buy in UK, they are really good. But to spend, also you have to spend for a bottle like this, I think 3,000 to 4,000 euro. Yeah. I don't know if you really have to like Caroni if you like to spend this money and open the bottle, you know. Yeah. Because the taste is not like Caroni rum. It's more than a Guyana rum. It's a very nice, drinkable rum, you know. Yeah, that was a very special tasting. And the people, they were very happy to have the possibility to taste this. And the funny thing always was when short before this tasting, I went to Carsten for the interview from ER Share, and I asked him, "Do you have Caroni you bought for blending? You know, the Caroni as you bought it from the distillery, with blended with neutral alcohol, the old ones you buy it for your blending?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." And then he makes a lineup. You know, all rums 80% ABV.
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, Carsten, can I get a sample from a 3, 5, and 8 years old rum?" And he said, "Yeah, okay, Steffen." And then he gave me from every rum 5 CL. I was very happy to get it.
Yeah.
And then we also tasted this in this round. I think nobody else without Carsten and people like this had the possibility to taste something. And it was funny. The best one was the 3 years old.
Yeah, there you go.
One of the group who was tasting it, he began suddenly crazy. "Steffen, do you think he has something? We have to put in a gas." Very funny, great. You know. And it was really great, this tasting. And the tasting notes you find in the book for the Caronis. Yes.
Yeah,
so.
Got it. Are you tired of drinking Caroni yet?
Oh, no. For me, people always ask me which you like the most. I like Caroni in general, you know. And sometimes it's boring because, you know, when people visit me to drink a rum with me, they bring always their Caroni.
Yeah. You're like, I like other things.
I mean, drunk already everything. So when you hear this, next
this one
time
again.
you visit me, don't drink Caroni.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, but I wanted to make sure, was there anything else that kind of stuck out to you during your research as really surprising to learn, or anything we haven't discussed already you wanted to mention?
Yeah, there are a lot of things I can tell you, because, you know, the interesting with Caroni was the distillery is closed.
Yeah.
So all employees, they don't have to whisper to me, "Hey, Seth, I can tell you, but don't talk about it." So they
no one has to worry about getting fired at this point.
They talk very open to me, and there was really a lot of interesting stories. One interesting story, for example, is Merlin Passat, who was responsible for the lab. She told me after the pot still was destroyed because they used the parts or the Gebrüder Hermann, they were afraid that the rum is not so powerful anymore and they have to do something. So from the early 80s rums, they put sherry in the cask for
really?
aging. Yeah, I talked a lot about this with Luca, yeah, and she also told me how much they put inside, and Luca and I would think, when the people say the sherry comes from Valdespino, yes. And when they tell you, okay, we bought sherry from Valdespino to put in the cask, it's the same like high ester Jamaican rum, It must be not always 100% true. So I think they put Paxarete. You know Paxarete?
No.
Paxarete is a reduced sherry,
Okay.
It's reduced. They also put, when the people talk, in the 60s and the 70s with whiskey, they took much better sherry cask, and the whiskey there is much more flavorful. It's also the same. They put Paxarete if it's in the cask. And when I talked to Stephen Schellenberger also about this, he said, I expected that they'd done this in rum as well, but not at this time, So, yeah, I think they put Paxarete in the cask. I can say between 80 and 85, they done it for sure, because after 85, Merlin told me, in the Legend 2000, they put it in the bottle, as they worked. And so until this time, I think between 80 and 85, they put also Paxarete in the cask for aging. It's very interesting. So after I had this information, I was also with some rum nerds drinking rum, and one guy, he's an incredible collection, and he have from everything big samples. And I asked, hey, do you have from all the 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Okay, then I say, okay, then we make an experiment, because you can't say, it's not easy to say, in this one is sherry inside, in this not, because you never tasted something like this before.
Speculation.
So it was very interesting to do this tasting with all the 82, 83, 85, 84 to taste this. And you really, when you know it at some, you really taste it that there is sherry inside or Paxarete.
Wow.
It's also very cool story, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. No, and that's interesting, the point you made about the interviews and how open people were. That was something I was thinking about as well, was just because there are so many parts of this story that intersect with politics and things like that. I just wondered, was it difficult to get anyone to talk about certain things, or were people just in general very open and sharing their opinions?
In my research, I also found a lot of business reports of Caroni, and was also very interesting because Caroni is so political, they love everything, so it's hard to find. It's not easy to say, okay, please give me a business report and you get it, In his business reports, it was also interesting to see the rum get sold from Caroni to other distillery as well.
Right.
And then you have to ask what they have done with this rum,
Yeah.
I always make joke and said, okay, they bought this 100 liters to clean their still, So for the TDL, for Caroni, also when it was open, it's everybody knows. Yeah, it's nothing special when you Google it.
Yeah,
you also find some newspaper articles because they discussed because Caroni sold too cheap to them, and of course TDL bought Caroni, but there. For me, it's no problem because it's still Trinidad Rum,
Right.
Yeah.
Were there distilleries outside Trinidad buying it?
Yes. And that makes it so. And I think it's something very common that distilleries sell their rum to other distillery, but nobody talks about this,
Right.
One example is St. Lucia Distillers. They bought every year Caroni,
Oh, wow.
But what happened with the Caroni? And some friends went there to make a distillery tour. And then they said, yeah, we put here Caroni inside in this bottle. And then I write them an email and say, hey, some friends of mine were at a distillery tour. You told them that you put Caroni there inside. And I said, oh, yeah, there I have to give you to the management. They will answer. Never answer, you know. But that's it. But I found in the business reports that they bought Caroni, and there was also other distilleries. They bought Caroni. Some declared it. The biggest customer, Caroni, was Santana from Colombia.
Oh, really?
And they declared it, yeah. And there was also Maria Magdalena Trading Company's Paseram. I think Paseram is sold in U.S.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. There was also Caroni inside, yes.
That's so
They
interesting.
bought a lot. They had a contract. You find the contract as well in my book. You can read what they have bought. So they had, they delivered year per year. They get delivered also in April 2010. Ron Abuelo bought also
Really?
500.
Wow.
It's surprising to me to hear so many sort of, lighter rums, like rums from Colombia and places like that would
South and
want to
Central
purchase
America,
Caroni rum since it's so distinctive.
Right. Wow.
So it's
that
funny.
is shocking.
You find a lot of information. So also,
Yeah. On that note, your book is full of information. What's the best way for people to buy it if they want to? And I also wanted to say congratulations to you, because I know that I think there's still copies available for people to purchase, but you personally have sold all 2,000 of the copies that you produced, correct?
Wow.
It's really sold. So I have now, because one customer paid and I took the books back, because when someone don't pay, I don't wait months for my money. So I took it back. So I have few copies now left, but I think end of the month, all books from my side are sold. I get also now a company from China who asked to import the books from China. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
They write me over Facebook. And also a friend of mine, he also bought some books for his shops. And there is also requests for US for importing books. I have no information about that because he's organizing this. But there are a lot of international shops, like Whiskey Point FR, so Alan Bailey has it, or Spirit Academy, Luca.
Okay.
And books you can order easily to US. It's no problem,
We'll put some links up for everyone.
Then you find also a Whiskey Booken. He's also very trustable shop you can order for US. Yes.
Well, like I said, we'd already heard from one excited listener who's been digging into it and going back through a lot of the old Caroni bottles that he has. So very cool to see people enjoying your work, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, thank you for taking the time and diving in, revealing some of the secrets. I'm sure there are many more in the book for people to look forward to. But we do have one last tradition on the Rumcast, which is a bonus round of questions called the Rapid Fire Round, where John has cooked up a batch of short, ridiculous questions that he will fire at you one at a time. And we're looking for quick, fast responses. We wait till the end of the interview where you're really worn out, and then we throw this at you. So are you up for the challenge?
I try. I hope that I understand him well.
That's all we can ask is to try, right? Yeah. That's exactly it. Just know that, Steffen, there's no wrong answers here.
No wrong answers.
All right. I think we're ready. So when you're ready.
I've got 60 seconds and go.
All right, Steffen, neat or on the rocks?
Without ice. I don't like ice.
Okay. Column, pot, or blend? What's your favorite?
Okay, I'm a fan of Caroni, so column.
All right. Molasses or cane juice? Probably an easy one as well.
I like both.
Okay, that's a valid answer. What about aged or unaged rum? Or do you like both?
Aged rum, of course.
Okay, all right. If you were to make this book into a series, which distillery do you think would be next in line?
So maybe the next project is Guyana.
Ooh.
Okay. All right. If you could have one free bottle of Caroni rum, which one would you choose? Free.
I would take Old Navy rum. because it's 90 proof. It's hard to find.
All right, and finally, I wrote a jingle for your book, Steffen. I'm not sure it's going to translate as well, but we're going to try this, okay? So I just want to know what you think about the jingle here. It goes like this. Steffen Mayer writes a ton on Caroni rum. What do you think?
Nice. You should
Steffen is
become a songwriter.
That's time, by the way. Steffen is being very polite in his assessment of John's jingle there. We won't expect it to be used in any advertising for the book.
Hey, I think it works great. So, all right. Thank you, Steffen. That was fun, and I appreciate it. And thank you for the whole interview. It was very, very enlightening, and we really appreciate your time. And I mean, I can't wait to read more about it as soon as I can get a copy of the book. They're hard to find, like you said, but we're going to go make sure people have the links and we can get to those. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Steffen. All right, thanks everyone for listening to another episode of the Rumcast. Like we said earlier, check out the show notes for links to where you can check out Steffen's Caroni book and see the magnum opus for yourself. And also, if you have any Caroni stories of your own, if you have gotten Steffen's book and have, flipped through it, we'd love to hear your thoughts and follow up with those on a future episode. So be sure to email us, host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com. You can also reach out to us on social media. John, where can they find us?
On social media, we are at the Rumcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also on YouTube now. And we're getting more and more requests, Will, for YouTube content, and that people want to see our faces. So we're going to have to make that happen at some point.
Careful what you wish for.
I know. I got to find a way to lose 10 pounds real quick so I can get rid of the camera effect. But yeah, so we're working on that as well, and lots of things going on our Patreon. So
Yes.
if you haven't heard about that, or have somehow been living under a rum rock and didn't get a chance yet to visit our Patreon page, it's at patreon.com/the Rumcast. You can support the show there. We have multiple levels and multiple things going on. We're looking forward to
happy hours.
Yes, all of that, and it's just a fun party of people who love rum to get together and talk more, hear more. If you somehow want to hear more of our voices, then that is the way to do it, and with some really, really cool content to boot. So we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. We thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.